this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Black Friday at Abercrombie is here with 25 to 50% off everything. And iHeart listeners are getting an extra 15% off with code IHEARTAF. It's the sale you've been waiting for, made even better with an exclusive stackable code. Shop Abercrombie in the app, online, and in stores. 25 to 50% off everything valid in stores and online November 24th, 2025 to December 1st, 2025 in U.S. and Canada. Excludes clearance and gift cards. Online price reflects discount. Extra 15% off almost everything is valid through December 1st, 2025 in U.S. and Canada. Exclusions apply. See details online.
Lowe's knows Sundays are for football, so tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Bounty and Swiffer cleaning products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
This is the Late Round Podcast with your host, JJ Zacharisa.
What's up, everyone? It's JJ Zacharisa, and in this episode 1060 of the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast, thanks for tuning in. Just a reminder, you're getting this 10 Trends episode right now, obviously, but the Sleepers episode that usually drops on Thursday, that's going to be out later today. Cool? Cool. Let's get to the trends this week. Emeka Egbuka is really struggling, at least for fantasy purposes. He's failed to reach double-digit PPR points in 5 of his last 6 games. That's despite seeing a target share per game rate of 28% during that time frame. Now, one thing I will say is that this started in week 6 when he had that hamstring injury. Then in week 7, he wasn't expected to play, or at least not that much. He did play, and he played more than anticipated because Mike Evans got hurt. But for argument purposes, let's just forget about that right now. From weeks 1 through 5, Egbuka was averaging 20.5 PPR points per game. Since then, he's been at 9.9. The question is why? What's going on here? Well, first off, during that first stretch, 76% of Egbuka's targets were deemed catchable by PFF. That's been just 48% since then. That's a huge difference. A 48% catchable targets rate is really, really low. We're talking like second or third percentile stuff if that continued throughout the entire season. Another problem, though, is deep ball conversion. From weeks 1 through 5, Egbuka saw 13 targets that traveled 20 or more air yards according to PFF. He caught 8 of them for 291 yards and 4 touchdowns. The dude was feasting on big plays. Since then, Egbuka only has 5 of those targets, 5 deep ball targets. He's caught 1 of them for 31 yards. That difference alone is literally more than 10 PPR points per game. Now, we knew that regression was gonna hit eventually for Egbuka, just given the way he was producing to start the year. I even did a trend talking about that. But this is too far in the other direction. Regression does not mean an overcorrection, and this is an overcorrection. A 48% catchable targets rate is not something that we see last a long time, and the lack of deep ball looks should regress at least to some degree. The good news is that Egbuka's seeing a lot of volume. He's averaging over 10 targets per game over his last 5. If the quality of those targets goes up even a little bit, he can go back to giving fantasy managers wide receiver 2 type numbers. But those are the high level statistical reasons as to why things just aren't working for Emeka Egbuka right now. Tyrone Tracy saw pretty good usage in week 12. Worthy enough usage to call it out on today's show. Now, I talked just last week about how Tracy was seeing more volume than Devin Singletary since Cam Skadaboo's season-ending injury. But Singletary was seeing all the work in the green zone, or within the opponent's 10-yard line. Entering last week and since Cam Skadaboo's injury, Singletary had 10 green zone attempts. Tyrone Tracy had 0. Well, that changed in week 12. Tracy saw 3 of a possible 4 rush attempts from within the Lions' 10-yard line. And Tracy hit his highest route share of the season and his highest snap share since week 1. If that usage continues, and that's obviously a big if, but if that usage continues, then we're going to see a lot more production from Tyrone Tracy down the stretch. I thought JJ McCarthy was worth a shot this year. You've got a great system with Kevin O'Connell, you've got great weapons, and he was a late round pick in fantasy. Worst case, he doesn't work out, you move on. He most definitely has not been working out. McCarthy ranks 33rd out of 34 qualified quarterbacks in completion percentage over expected according to Next Gen Stats. His passing EPA per dropback, minus 0.42. That's dead last in the league. The player in second to last is Dylan Gabriel at minus 0.26. McCarthy has a quarterback rating of 57.9. The player in second to last, Cam Ward, 75.7. I mean, guys, this is really, really, really bad. McCarthy scored fewer than 6 fantasy points in half of his starts this year. And his receivers are feeling it too. Justin Jefferson is averaging 11.7 PPR points per game with JJ McCarthy. Without him, he was at 16.3. JJ McCarthy has completely torpedoed this Minnesota Vikings offense. The Steelers' offense is honestly just stupid. It's obnoxious. If you thought the low average depth of target thing was specifically an Aaron Rodgers related thing, you'd be wrong because Mason Rudolph, he started this past week. He now has 49 pass attempts on the season. Among relevant quarterbacks, there are 49 of them who qualify. Rudolph is dead last in average depth of target at 4.6. Kyler Murray is 48th on that list. He has an 8 out of 6.0. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers, he's 46th. He has an 8 out of 6.3. The Steelers have targeted their wide receivers on just 43% of their targets this year. That's easily the lowest in the league. DK Metcalf has seen roughly 22% of their overall targets. So more than half of their wide receiver targets, essentially. And really, DK Metcalf's problem, it's not deep ball volume. He ranks 18th in the league right now at wide receiver and 20-plus air yard targets. That's according to PFF. That could be worse given these circumstances, given the fact that these average depth of target numbers are so low. The problem is conversion. DK Metcalf on deep balls is basically Keon Coleman. He's caught just 3 of his 14 deep ball targets. That's the fewest receptions, at least tied for the fewest receptions among all players with 12 or more deep ball targets. Metcalf is now averaging 52 yards per game as a result. That's the lowest of his career, which includes his rookie season. So it's just a mess in Pittsburgh. It's DK Metcalf or bust at wide receiver, and it's mostly been bust from that perspective. Now, speaking of the Steelers, they really leaned into this whole Kenneth Gainwell thing in Week 12. Against Chicago, Gainwell outsnapped Jaylen Warren 37-36. And arguably more importantly, he ran 23 routes to Warren's 11. Gainwell had a 20% target share, Jaylen Warren 0%. Warren saw a 64% running back rush share when there was a 4-game stretch about a month ago where his running back rush share was closer to 80% per game. But Warren hasn't seen a double-digit percentage target share since Week 7. That's pretty crazy when you consider how he's been deployed throughout his career. And yes, I know that he had that ankle injury, but I don't know if that really impacted the usage in Week 12. Now, I could make the argument that Warren's better statistically than Kenneth Gainwell, but I don't think it's so glaring and so obvious that Pittsburgh needs to change things up. Warren's still been usable enough, but he's more of a floor play in fantasy now, not a ceiling play. And Gainwell in PPR formats, he can sometimes be flex now. It's kind of hard to say otherwise when he has target shares of 14%, 11%, 28%, and 20% over his last 4 games. The Raiders' run game is absolutely terrible. It's horrific. They've been stuffed on 27.5% of their runs this year, according to Next Gen Stats. That's the worst rate in Next Gen Stats history, which dates back to 2018. Or at least the data that we're able to see. Somehow, the Cleveland Browns have a worse success rate than the Raiders do, but Vegas is second worst in success rate. Now, clearly, this funnels down to Ashton Genty. According to PFF, Genty's bottom 5 in the league in yards before contact per attempt, which is partially an offensive line-based metric. But he's also bottom 5 in rushing yards over expected per attempt. Really, at this point, you're not using or rostering Genty because of what he can do on the ground. He hasn't had a game with more than 3.5 yards per carry since Week 5. But since Week 4, he's averaged a target share per game rate of 16.6%. We'll see if that keeps up now that Chip Kelly's out of the picture. But you have to imagine it will to some degree as long as Genty's healthy, because this team has not been able to get any push at all running the football. Houston's defense is really good. We saw that on full display on Thursday night, but man, it's crazy how well they're playing. On the season, No quarterback has finished as a top 12 passer in weekly scoring against the Texans. That's why they rival Denver as the toughest matchup for quarterbacks by adjusted fantasy points allowed. They also have allowed the fewest yards per game, the best EPA per dropback rate, and the fourth best sack rate. Now, I don't want to say that they're a defense that you have to play in fantasy no matter what, though. Seattle and Houston, they currently lead all team defenses with 9.6 fantasy points per game. I track the defensive streaming picks that we make on my other podcast, Living the Stream. I track those picks each week. And those picks are based on percent rostered numbers pre-waivers. I don't have that benefit with the Sleeper Show, though I do track those too. Our main defensive streaming plays, they're at about 9 points per game via Living the Stream. So not that far off from the Houston Texans, which means the Texans, they're the preferred choice generally, but they won't always be no matter what. If you have them though, you shouldn't drop them and start streaming. They've been too good for that. Kyle Monangai saw a 60% running back rush share against the Steelers. That was his second highest share of the season, and it was the first time he was above the 50% mark in a game with DeAndre Swift. Monangai played 35 snaps according to PFF, Swift 29, and he ran 3 more routes. In other words, we saw a shift in usage this past week. Now maybe this had at least something to do with DeAndre Swift's fumble in the early second quarter. But it's not like Swift was just straight up benched after that. Monangai's not much of a threat in the passing game, and that's going to limit his upside. But he does have a success rate that's 5 percentage points better than Swift's. And their rushing yards over expected per attempt, almost identical. It's clear Monangai brings a different style, a different element to this Bears offense and to this rushing attack. So I wouldn't be shocked if this sticks to some degree. I'd just be worried about Monangai's receiving upside. He's seen target shares of 3%, 4%, and 0% over his last 3. Things have not been great for Rashid Shaheed in Seattle, at least from a fantasy perspective. He's seen target shares of 8%, 12%, and 8% in his 3 games there. His route shares have been in like the 70 to 75% range. He's just not very usable. Meanwhile, without Shaheed in New Orleans, Chris Olave has had back-to-back games with at least a 30% target share. And yes, he's been there before this year, but leading up to the last 2 games, he had 3 straight under a 25% target share. According to Fantasy Points data, Olave's first read target shares have been 44% during these 2 games without Shaheed. With Shaheed, Olave had a first read target share of 30%. So this move has been really good for Chris Olave. And even if it might be a good thing in real football for Shaheed, it hasn't been a good move in fantasy. I'm fully aware that I'm looking at an L with my Lamar Jackson buy recommendation over the last couple of weeks. He's been horrible. He scored 4.7 and 7.2 standard fantasy points, and that's my bad. He's now averaging fewer than 18 rushing yards per game since returning from injury. He's under the 30 rushing yards per game mark on the season. And that's by far the lowest mark of his career. Since becoming starter, he's never had a season where his rushing yards per game has fallen below 50. That's because his designed rushes are down. According to Fantasy Life data, from weeks 1 through 4, Lamar was averaging 3 designed rush attempts per game. Since his return in his 4 games, that number's nearly cut in half at 1.8. And he's gotten 5 of his 7 rush attempts since returning from injury in 1 game. That was against Minnesota in week 10. For Jackson to take advantage of this really great schedule, he's going to have to run more. Now, in my eyes, he hasn't exactly looked 100%, but hopefully he can get there, or else I'll be definitely taking an L with that buy recommendation that I made. That's it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you get subscribed to the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast, make sure you are by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. And to follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at Late Round QB. Like I said, I'll have the Sleepers episode for you later today. I'll talk to you then.
If you're a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility and your machinery isn't working right, Grainger knows you need to understand what's wrong as soon as possible. So when a conveyor motor falters, Grainger offers diagnostic tools like calibration kits and multimeters to help you identify and fix the problem. With Grainger, you can be confident you have everything you need to keep your facility running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
'Tis the season for identity theft. This time of year, most of us are checking off our holiday gift lists. But guess what? Identity thieves have lists too, and your personal information might be on them. Protect your identity with LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second and alerts you to threats you could miss by yourself, even if you keep an eye on your bank and credit card statements. If your identity is stolen, your own U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. And all plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. The last thing you want to do this holiday season is face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or other financial losses from identity theft all alone. Make this season about joy, not identity theft, with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code IHEART. Or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.